Chapter 1. Where has all the prosperity gone? If you grew up in America in the latter part of the 20th century, you probably formed a reasonable expectation that as you grew up and grew older, your wealth would steadily increase and your standard of living would constantly rise. It was really more than an expectation. Not quite a guarantee, it nevertheless felt something like a promise. Part of a social contract between you and the society in which you lived, a covenant you metaphorically entered into at birth as a citizen of the wealthiest country in the world. Your part of the covenant was to study hard, get as much education as you could stand and afford, find productive employment, and make your contribution to the gross domestic product, or GDP, the nation's overall wealth. In return, you would have sufficient wherewithal not just to live comfortably, but to save and invest and assure yourself and your family, possibly even your heirs, a continually escalating standard of living. You would invest savings today to have money in the future that you could apply to goals that changed as your life changed. A home of your own, an exciting vacation, a string of college tuition payments, and eventually, a secure retirement. Even though gold watches and comfortable company pensions have been disappearing for years, most commonly you'd look to corporate benefit programs to help with your investing. On-the-job investing typically meant a 401k retirement plan, often with matching employer contributions, which allowed you to choose from among a range of investment options, primarily in mutual funds. You might supplement this with your own personal portfolio of investments in equities and fixed income instruments. And you would probably try to mix up the portfolio in terms of asset class, geography, industry type, and so on, as a way of diversifying risk and ensuring reward. Sure, the market value of your account suffered the occasional dip, sometimes a significant one, but over the years the markets made you more and more prosperous. And you would likely buy a house. They would probably be your biggest investment, the biggest single asset in your portfolio, the asset you planned to sell when the time came, when the kids were grown and gone and your career was winding down, to fund a secure retirement. Even better, since house prices never seemed to go down, you could spend what you earned, or more, knowing that your house was doing the saving for you. In fact, owning your own home seemed like something more than just an investment. It, too, felt like part of the covenant. It belonged inherently to the picture we all carried in our heads of the American dream: the career, the house, the expectation of rising prosperity. Compared to your parents, the dream said, your car would be more plush, your house bigger, and your travel more worldly. Maybe your paycheck wouldn't cover this burgeoning lifestyle, but your investment portfolio and your home equity line would cover the gap. For decades, certainly from the 1980s right through to the end of the 20th century and just beyond, Americans who held this expectation of rising prosperity were rarely disappointed. The social contract worked. The covenant held. And most of us, again, not unreasonably, began to feel that this was the way things always were and would always be. And then came the dot-com collapse, the puncturing of the housing bubble, the debacle in the subprime mortgage market, the collapse or near collapse of some of the best-known banks and brokerage houses, and then the Great Recession that followed. And the covenant was smashed to smithereens. Even if you dutifully paid your affordable mortgage, kept your debts under control, and followed the textbook solutions for diversifying your portfolio, your fortunes were caught up in the financial storm. Your monthly financial statements told you so. Not only would your investments not pay for life's luxuries, their disappointing returns threatened to deny you the opportunity eventually to stop working, harvest their growth, and enjoy the lengthy retirement you spent all those hours on the treadmill, both literally and figuratively, staying in shape for. Suddenly, the octogenarian greeting you at the Walmart seemed like the ghost of retirements to come. Crisis.